There's a killer that brutally beat her little body walking free.
The unsolved murder of 16-year-old Mariah Kletz.
I said, what do you mean Mariah died and they don't want me to know? I was frantic.
Police just revealed how Mariah died, and her family says it was brutal.
When we turned and we looked at her laying there, we were not prepared. Her eyes were black. Her skull was disfigured.
Off the record, the family says they're being told police have a prime suspect.
They tell me, don't let nobody lead you a different way. You know who did it. We know who did it.
Some people think Mariah's own father is to blame. So we asked him. People are pointing the finger at you, saying you are the reason that Mariah died. I mean, what do you have to say for that? This is Scandal, presented by Law&Crime. I'm Gillespie. It has now been 6 months since 16-year-old Mariah Kletz was killed. That's missed school dances, summer breaks, holidays, and birthdays. Mariah herself would have been 17 on August 31st. Instead, she's frozen in time at age 16 after she was murdered back in February. Since then, the case has taken twists and turns literally up to the minute. I mean, I finished writing this story. It was almost completely edited when I got a call from police, a major update 6 months in the making. Did our reporting move the needle, light a fire in the release of more information? All of that is very possible, and we do have some brand new information. But in the 6 months since Mariah's murder, there still have been no arrests. Plenty of suspects cleared with alibis, search warrants served, evidence collected, and still no one has been taken into custody or charged with what police are calling homicide. We first reported on this case about 6 months ago after Mariah's death, and the facts we knew were scarce. Mariah Kletz, a 16-year-old girl out of Bloomington, Illinois, was dead. At the time, we couldn't even label it as a homicide. Today's case is shrouded in mystery. There are so many questions that remain completely unanswered. Police say one thing, the family says another. But the bottom line is this: a 16-year-old girl is no longer with us. And that alone is a tragedy. But what really happened to 16-year-old Mariah Kletz? We posted that Scandal video on February 16th of this year. The next day, I got a DM. It said, "Thank you for sharing my niece's story." Now, that message was from Mariah's aunt, Haley Nelson. She wrote back again on February 18th saying, "We are praying they make an arrest before her celebration of life on a Friday. When I'm able, I'll share more details." The time to share those details is now. Haley reached back out to me a few weeks ago, asking for help. She wrote, "Hi, thank you for reaching out to our family in the past. We stayed quiet because we wanted to give law enforcement the time and space to investigate. Now, nearly 6 months later, our 16-year-old Mariah still has no justice. Investigators have told us they have 2 primary suspects. Promises of arrest coming, yet no arrests have been made. We're ready to share Mariah's story because she deserves to be remembered as more than a case. She was deeply loved and her life mattered. If your station is still interested in helping us tell her story and keep attention on her case, we'd be incredibly grateful." Now, this really got me thinking. At the time of my first Scandal episode about Mariah, we only knew that she died. We didn't know cause of death, the manner of death, or if anyone was involved at all. So after getting Haley's message, I wanted to verify what new facts we had in the case, update myself on the latest info. And that's where I ran into a problem. There was no new info in this case, at least nothing that was being released publicly at the time. And in my experience, that's just not normal 6 months into an investigation. But I wanted to ask an expert about all this. So I called on retired detective commander Will Svilar. He's host of the YouTube podcast Big City Crime, Inside the Red Tape. And he worked in Chicago's homicide division for years.
Well, it's been my experience that 2 things are going on. One of 2 things. One, they're trying to build a case and they don't want to release any information that would tip off the person they're building a case against, or they have nothing. It's one of 2 things. They're either keeping their cards close to the vest because they're building a case on someone, or they don't have a lot.
I've been turned down before, but I wanted to try again. So my team reached out to Bloomington PD and the medical examiner. We wanted our hands on the 911 call, the autopsy report, and any sort of new information they could give us. And Nothing. Our Freedom of Information Act request was completely denied. We were told if details of an investigation are made public prematurely, it can compromise the integrity of the process. Suspects or individuals involved may be alerted, potentially destroying evidence or fleeing from law enforcement, making them more difficult to identify or apprehend them. By keeping information confidential, investigators can maintain the element of surprise and increase the likelihood of a successful resolution. Do you have any explanation for why I can't get those?
None. None whatsoever. I mean, I can tell you that sometimes in police investigations, because I dealt with FOIA requests all the time, you could get away with saying ongoing investigation for a while, but after a while, you got to give out the information that's requested. Freedom of Information Act 1974, you have to give out the information. And in those cases, we'd give heavily redacted information out there if it compromised, anything was in there that could compromise the investigation. I have no idea why the ME is not releasing their report yet. Their whole report should be done by now. The protocol, we call it the protocol. The protocol is, an autopsy is done and you get a cause and manner pretty much right there if there's an obvious cause and manner of death. The protocol comes out on all the notes where you can read every single thing that happened during that post-mortem examination. That should be done. And I don't understand why that's not being released.
Without a 911 call recording or ME report, I went straight to the next source, the Bloomington Police Department. I made call after call, sent multiple emails asking for some new information. At the very least, I wanted to confirm how Mariah died. I finally got a call back from the PIO who essentially told me, what's out there is all that's out there. That's all that we can say right now. And I pressed, asking him if there were any suspects or if they could release Mariah's cause of death. He said he couldn't comment. For transparency, I then asked him to send a follow-up email with all the information, and he graciously did. Here's what it reads in part. At this time, we are not releasing any additional information regarding this investigation, as it remains an active investigation. For your reference, I have attached the media releases issued thus far related to this case. Should additional information become available for release, we will provide an update. And I'll give you a short rundown on what those releases say. The initial one was posted on February 9th. That's 2 days after Mariah's death. It says that a 911 call came in at 10:46 a.m. on February 7th. Upon arrival, officers and paramedics located a juvenile female and initiated life-saving efforts. Despite the efforts, the individual was pronounced deceased at the scene by the McLean County Coroner's Office. Pronounced deceased at 11:40 a.m. on February 2nd, 2026 was Mariah Kletz, age 16, of Bloomington, Illinois. Now, the release goes on to say it's an active investigation and there's no threat to the public, but notice, no cause or manner of death. Now, the second release came out 10 days later with only a bit more information. It reads in part, this incident is being investigated as a homicide. Preliminary investigation suggests this was an isolated incident and there is no threat to the public. No additional information is being released at this time. But here's the thing. I didn't stop when police put up the red tape. I turned to Mariah's family, who have taken matters into their own hands. After Mariah's death, they visited the trailer where she lived. They snapped this picture showing a search warrant on her father's refrigerator. And again, I want to note, police have not released this search warrant or made it public. I got this from the family. But this search warrant gives us a major clue for the way Mariah was killed. Now, we enhanced the image, and here's what we can take from it. The search warrant was issued on February 8th. That's 1 day after Mariah's death. It gives specifics about what detectives may collect as possible evidence, and this part is straight from the warrant. And if found, sees the following: writings or other evidence of occupancy, cellular phone or phones, tablets, smartwatch or watches or computers, devices capable of electronic communications, any items containing red, blood-like substances, clothing, items capable of inflicting blunt force trauma, any devices capable of recording audio and or video, including any peripherals needed to allow the device to function.
I think she was beat to death. I don't know why they're not saying that. I mean, they're saying it's, when you look at the copy of the search warrant that was left at the home that you showed me, you shared with me, it says everything you expect to see in a search warrant, what they're searching for. But an interesting thing that's in it is it says any device or implement that could inflict blunt force trauma. That kind of tells you what they're looking for, and it also tells you the cause of death. The crazy thing is there has been no release, no reclassification by the police that we know of, and no release by the ME of the actual cause and manner of death. And this is, back in February. First of all, something should be back on that search warrant by now. And I just don't understand why they're not giving more information out.
Again, neither did I. But I formed a good relationship with the Bloomington Police Department after I've been hounding them for weeks. So I told the PIO, Officer Bryce Jansen, I'd give him notice when the story was going to be posted. On Wednesday, I sent him an email saying my episode was finished, and I said, okay, I have to address the lack of info that police have released. And I did mention I interviewed both sides of the family. Then I told him the video was set to be posted this weekend. He replied on the same day. He wrote, "Thank you, Sierra. I appreciate the heads up. I'll be sure to let you know when we have any updates to share." And let me just say, he was not lying. Less than 24 hours after I got that email, I also got a call to my personal phone coming from Bloomington, Illinois. I answered, and it was the PIO with two major updates. First, Mariah's cause of death has officially been revealed. And second, the Bloomington Police Department wants a complete and raw copy of my interviews, research, and any assets I have for this case. Whoa. So let's start with the biggest news, though. The fact that Mariah's cause of death has been revealed. This is from Officer Jansen's email to me. Attached is a recent update on the Mariah Kletz homicide investigation. It includes additional preliminary autopsy findings that were released minutes ago. And I had to include that just to show these results were released just minutes before they were sent to me. In fact, I received a call about the autopsy results even before they were made public. Now, the police news release states that as of August 6, 2026, just shy of 6 months to the day of Mariah's death, the coroner's findings have now been released. This is a direct quote from the release. The McLean County Coroner's Office has released additional preliminary findings. The immediate cause of death has been determined to be subdural hematoma and multiple blunt injuries of the head and neck due to an altercation. Contributing factors include amphetamine, sertraline, and fluoxetine intoxication. The time frame from the onset of injuries to death was noted as minutes. The manner of death was ruled as homicide. This is huge. This is the first time we have any sort of confirmation on the record that Mariah had multiple blunt injuries, meaning she sustained a beating to the head and neck. Now, a subdural hematoma means there was an injury, generally to the head, like it was in this case, that causes blood to pool between the outer covering of the brain and the brain's surface. Now, I'm not a medical expert, so while I was on the phone with the Bloomington police officer, I asked what all this meant. How soon after Mariah was physically attacked did she die? He said it was just minutes. And that brings a lot of questions to the forefront. The place where Mariah's body was found. I mean, how did she get there? Who saw what happened? And again, why have there been no arrests? Both sides of Mariah's family have different beliefs about who may have attacked Mariah or what happened. And that's part two of this new development. The fact that the Bloomington Police Department wants their hands on our full raw interviews with both sides of the family. I shared those interviews with police, and now I'm going to share them with you.
She was a big animal lover. She had the biggest heart. She just wanted to do as much as she could for everybody around her who she loved.
That's Mariah's Aunt Haley, the one who reached out to me. Here's her Nana, Teresa Nelson.
Behind me, like this is a picture of Mariah with a turtle. They crossed some roads in Florida, and, she got out, jumped out of the road, out of the car and carried it to the side of the road, so it didn't get ran over. She was that kid, you know what I mean? Just that kid.
Mariah was born on August 31st, 2009, to mom, Rachel Wessels, and dad, Michael Kletz.
She was a beautiful, young, independent young woman. She did all her stuff herself, She was the type of girl that would take her shirt off her back for somebody. She had a big, wonderful heart.
I reached out to Michael for an interview a few weeks ago, and he agreed to sit down and talk with me. Mariah's mom, Rachel, unfortunately passed away in 2021 at age 30.
Rachel was never forgotten. She was a part of her life. Everybody loved Rachel, you know what I mean? She loved Mariah enough not to have her in that kind of environment that she grew up in. So even though Rachel was an addict and she was fighting demons herself, she loved Mariah enough to know that she couldn't take care of Mariah, which I always applauded her for that, you know, because some kids, the parents keep them in that environment because they don't want to say, hey, we can't do it, you know what I mean? But Rachel loved her enough to take her out of that and to let her be with us.
Because of this dynamic, Mariah was raised mostly by her Aunt Crystal, who she called her bonus mom, spending most of her time in Florida.
I got incarcerated, and so she stayed with her cousins in Florida for the time being, and until I got out of incarceration, which changed my life to the man I am today.
Can you tell me what were you charged with or convicted of that you had to serve time?
It's public record.
That's fine. I can do some research.
It's no comment right now.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it. That first voice was Lori Hyatt, Mariah's maternal grandmother. She was there for Michael's interview and will pop up a few times in this episode. But they both made it clear they didn't want to discuss Michael's conviction or incarceration. So I looked it up on my own. He's got a lengthy rap sheet dating back to March 2005. Honestly, most of the cases are pretty minor. He's got traffic citations, speeding, driving with a suspended license, or improper lane usage, and a couple citations for dogs running at large. But there are a few charges that stood out to me, including domestic battery, burglary, driving under the influence of both alcohol and drugs separately, criminal trespass to vehicles, resisting or obstructing a peace officer, and unlawful use of weapons. Now, Michael made it clear in his interview with me. He's turned his life around. And I'm not listing these infractions to belittle or embarrass him, but because they will be something detectives are going to keep a close eye on during Mariah's death investigation.
They absolutely would look at that. They look at the nature of the conviction. They'd also look to see if he's in CODIS, which is a DNA database. So if he's been inside the penitentiary, he's in CODIS.
But in 2025, after years of living with her aunt in Florida, Mariah wanted to make a change.
She had asked if she could, kind of reunite with her dad. Could she stay up here in Bloomington to get to know him? He had just got back out of prison. She hadn't seen him since then.
At that point, Mariah moved into a trailer with her father, Michael, his girlfriend, Caitlin, and their 3-year-old daughter. And at first, everything seemed to be going well. Can you describe to me your relationship with Mariah? Because it sounds like she came back to Illinois and you guys just started living together. I mean, what was that like getting to know her?
We had it outstanding. She was a daddy's girl, I gave in to her quite a bit, I personally was too lenient, she could walk all over daddy, and she was my little princess, and I gave her everything I possibly could. She always was an open-minded young lady. And we started building our relationship back together real good. She was just daddy's girl. She's always been since she was a little baby. It was always just me and her. Always, and I extremely miss her very much.
Here's Mariah's aunt, Alexis Nelson.
I went to the trailer a day or two after she died. She had all these goals written on the fridge, her room, not even only for herself goals, but for her whole family at that trailer. There was goals, resolutions for everybody to fulfill by that year.
Affirmation.
And she only got to make it 2 months into that year, and nobody fulfilled none of them goals.
This is Mariah's actual handwriting. She wrote, "I'm worthy. I'm strong. I attract abundance. I'm confident. Do. Don't say do. I'm humble. Focus on yourself. Get explicit done so you don't have to worry about it later." Mariah's extended family says she was determined to make something of her life and to rebuild the relationship with her dad. And in the beginning, she seemed very excited about it all.
But to be a 16-year-old girl and you go from having rules you have to follow, you got to get up and go to school every day. You've got to be at the dinner table. We go to football games on the weekend. we've got your day is set schedule it's a routine. And to go from that to, hey, I'm going into this environment and I'm 16, nobody's telling me what to do. I can go do whatever I want with whoever I want. I can stay out all night and nobody's holding me accountable. So she got to more or less run the streets. You know what I'm saying?
Not go to school.
So at the beginning, she loved it up here, them first months. Because, hey, I'm 16 and nobody's telling me, get up, go to school. You know what I mean? Don't do your homework. So at the beginning, it was like, hey, I'm 16, I love it. But then it turned into, hey, maybe rules are a good thing, And I think they're at the probably 4 months before she passed, she realized, hey, I need structure in my life.
About 10 months into her life in Bloomington, Mariah's Nana says she just had enough.
Her intentions were, like, that week before, she was going to return to Florida. It wasn't what she thought. You know what I mean? She wanted to go back home to Florida,
But what was Mariah saying about, wanting to leave, or what her life was there, living in the trailer with Michael and Caitlin?
I mean, she would always just tell us, that she was unhappy, that it wasn't what she was expecting it to be, that, her dad would continuously break promises, and, she was just in a very down and depressed time.
But Mariah would never make it back to Florida. Instead, on February 7th, her family received news that changed their lives forever.
All of a sudden, I get a call from my aunt, and she tells me, Mariah died, Teresa. And I said, what do you mean Mariah died? She goes, and they don't want you to know. I said, what do you mean Mariah died and they don't want me to know? I was frantic. I looked for the car keys. I tried to move the car. I couldn't, and I called my daughter, Haley, and she pulled up in front of the house. I got in the car. I had a tank top on. It was the middle of winter. I was sick. I had sweatpants on, and I ran out of the house, and we drove to the trailer. We got the call like at 11:32, and we got to the trailer, and we almost got all the way up the stairs before the police came pouring out the door saying, this is a crime scene, you got to get out.
When they arrived to the trailer, it was being treated as a crime scene. But there were some notable people missing.
The 911 call was at 10:46. My mom called me at 11:28. By the time we got to the trailer, it was 11:32, and there was nobody left at the scene when we got there. There was no parents, no other grandparents. There was nobody. It was just us.
And here's where my mind really starts racing with questions. Where was Mariah's dad when his family arrived to the scene? Did he find Mariah in need of help? Is he the one who called 911? And there are a lot of questions here, so I started by asking the basics. Can you bring me back to that day in February? I mean, what happened? As a reporter, I really haven't gotten much from police. All I know is that Mariah passed away. Can you explain what happened?
No comment right now.
Mariah's father says he's not going to comment on any of it. But according to her Nana and aunts, there have been multiple stories.
We heard so many stories, like they told us, somebody beat her up a few days ago. I mean, this came weeks later. She died of a drug overdose. And I said, Mariah, don't do drugs like that. Like, what?
They were saying, like, her vape was laced with fentanyl. I mean, these were just the things that, you know, the parents in the home with her were telling us before we actually got to view her body for ourselves.
The new coroner's report gives us some insight into what was in Mariah's system at the time of her death. And the spoiler alert is that there were no hard drugs. She was found to have amphetamine, which is otherwise known as Adderall, in her system. This is a drug that's used to treat ADHD. She was also found with the SSRI serotonin, which is commonly known as Zoloft. Now, this drug is generally prescribed for people with anxiety or depression. Lastly, Mariah was found with fluoxetine, otherwise known as Prozac, in her system. This is also an SSRI used for anxiety, depression, or even OCD treatment. Now, after this report was released, I spoke to her Aunt Haley, and she tells me Mariah was prescribed all of these medications for previous diagnoses. And this is of note too, because during my interview with Michael, he mentioned casually that Mariah reportedly overdosed while living in Florida.
she loved them very much, and some stuff happened down there. You know, I heard she OD'd. I really don't know what happened. They didn't give me any detail of really much what happened down there, but but she loved them very much.
Was she involved?
She
Was she involved in drugs?
no. I don't know. They didn't give me much detail what went on down there. You know, it was.
She had a lot of free time.
She had a lot of free time, you know. And when she came back with Dad, you know, when she came back with me, she just was independent. We put the trailer together that we bought. You know, she was just a real independent young woman and helpful.
With the possibility of a drug overdose now ruled out, here's where the blunt force trauma comes in.
I remember very vividly the coroner telling us, Amber, what's your relation to her? Okay, you don't want to see her like this. You just need to see her at the funeral home. You can't see her like this. It will be very traumatic.
You know, I guess we just didn't realize how extreme her injuries were.
They told us that
we didn't want to have an open casket.
Yeah, they said that
so
no makeup could cover the traumatic that was done
so
to
I
her
said
face.
I wanted to decide for myself if we were going to have an open casket. But when we walked down, her body was downstairs at the funeral home, and when we got to about the 5th step from the bottom, we turned and you could see her little body laying there.
They had her face uncovered.
And that changed. February 7th changed me and my daughter's life, and it changed Mariah's life. But that 5th step, when we turned and we looked at her laying there, we were not prepared. We were in shock that she was black and blue. Her skull was moved. She had a cut on her face, a gash. She had gashes all over her face. Her eyes were black. Her skull was disfigured.
Her forehead was sticking out of her head.
Like, we did not, I guess we couldn't comprehend at the time.
I mean, whatever you can picture in your head, it was 20 times worse.
At this point, it's probably clear that Mariah's family has conflicting views of what happened to her. So we'll start with the inconsistencies that her Nana says she was given.
We had heard so many stories because her dad had told us there's no marks on her. You know, he just woke up, went to the bathroom, and he went to check on Mariah, and he found her like that. But he told us over and over there were no marks on her, but that was a lie because when we seen her body,
she had over 22 marks on her face, from, you know, black eyes to gashes to scratches to, you know, her forehead being forward. And we did go upstairs and talk to the funeral home, and we asked them, you know, did any of this come from the autopsy? And they assured us, you know,
you could tell the difference.
You could
between the
tell
marks
the
of
difference.
The autopsy.
There was a lot of screaming and crying, and Michael and his girlfriend Caitlin came down there with us, and they actually stood in a corner. They stood in a corner as we screamed at the top of our lungs, "What did you do to her? What did you do to her?
I mean,
what happened to her?"
Screams that you'll just never forget. You know, you'll replay that moment over and over.
And we were just
in our heads forever.
And I know detectives are keeping kind of tight-lipped about everything, and without naming names, but have they told you, yeah, we agree with you, we think it was this person?
They're the ones that told me, yes. They have. They said this. We know who did it. You know who did it. Don't let somebody tell you something else, because I when I call them, I say, well, what about this? I heard this on the streets. You know, somebody called me up because I'm her Nana, and I got a text or an email. Did you look at this person? And they tell me, don't let nobody lead you a different way. You know who did it. We know who did it.
Again, I have to be clear. Michael Kletz has not been charged or even arrested in this case. But there has been some discourse that he may have been involved in Mariah's death. So I asked him about it. One of the things I guess I've been struggling to, because the police department, I've reached out to them, the ME, everything that you have said you've done also. And they're just giving me no comment, or they won't return my calls or emails, things like that. But I have heard, just kind of in the zeitgeist, reported that blunt force trauma was involved here. Now, I haven't seen an official cause or manner of death in any way, but
there's no facts that
sorry, say that again.
Blunt force trauma. There's no facts on that.
I'm going to let Michael finish, but first, let me remind you, this interview was recorded before the cause of death, being blunt force trauma, was revealed publicly.
It's just, we're the coroner. We're assuming, you know, but we're assuming the situation now about these kids. I really don't know. They haven't given me much answers, you know, and it's just really rough that, you know, they're looking at me and Caitlin, you know, and they should be looking at these kids more, you know, I believe. And that's where I'm at right now. You have any more questions?
I was going to ask you about that because, yeah, sorry, I'll just ask one more and then I promise we can be done. But that's something I've seen too, where people are pointing the finger at you, saying you are the reason that Mariah died. I mean, what do you have to say for that?
It really hurts my feelings because I'm a really, really great father, and I extremely feel so upset that these people, family, and my fiance's family would think that I would hurt anybody, you know, any kid at that, you know, because kids love their dad, you know. I can have all the neighbor kids come over, you know. I'm just like a daddy daycare, you know. Kids love me, and that's all I got right now.
Mariah's dad and her maternal grandmother, Lori Hyatt, have a different take on what happened.
I apologize to interrupt, but I need to let you know some of these things that have to do with those other children, her so-called friends, there's not a lot of facts to pinpoint down to. They did it. They need to be convicted. They need to go to jail. Everything has just been kind of piecing itself together over the months. So you can go ahead and tell her what we believe, and you're going to say it like that. I believe this is what happened. Okay?
Okay. I believe my daughter went to a party, and she was with this girl that this girl was obsessed with her, and I believe that her and her friends got Mariah because Mariah didn't want to be with this girl and hurt my baby girl. That's what I believe. What happened. And so.
And have you talked to investigators and said all of this stuff?
Yes, many times. I mean, I've got recordings from these kids saying this kid did this, you know, and
but it's all hearsay.
But it's all hearsay, she said, you know. But I've got them on recording, though. I did my own research and investigation myself, you know. As a father, that's what a parent, I believe, should do. You know, if the PD or detectives are not giving me answers, so I'm gonna find my own answers. You know what I mean? But that's where I'm at right now.
I've spoken to both sides of the family. They both have different stories, and they both are telling me different things about the family members. And I'm from Wisconsin. These are Illinois people. They're my type of people, Midwestern people. Everyone I hear, I'm like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. I can't imagine. And I'm hearing their story and thinking like, yeah, okay, I totally get it. But then the other side of the family says an opposite thing. So how do you as a detective parse through who's telling the truth in all this?
Well, you listen to what they have to say. You follow up with information they may give you, but you follow the evidence. All you can do is follow the evidence. You can get you can do interviews and get theories of the crime through many different sources. but you have to follow the evidence. This person says this person did it and this is how they did it. If you have evidence that supports that, that's one thing. But if you don't, I mean, you listen to it, you follow up on it because you have to. You have to follow up on all these leads, but you have to follow the evidence.
And it's so hard because in this case, I don't have a clue what the evidence is. Like, I could make a hypothesis for what I think they would have collected. I mean, we saw the search warrants, so like a phone, an iPad, maybe an Apple Watch, things of the like. But at the same time, when I'm covering cases, usually there's something like, for instance, the Nancy Guthrie case. We're like, okay, we have the Ring camera video. We've got, there was blood spatter. We've got all these little tidbits of information. But here in the Mariah Kletz case, I don't know what we have. Was she talking to someone on Snapchat? Was there blood spatter? Was there whatever? So I guess what sort of evidence do you hypothesize that they're working with?
Well, if you look at the search warrant, you can see that they asked for just what you said. Is there a beef on social media? They looked for all kind of, the things we always write: computer, tablets, smartphones, smartwatches, anything that shows location of where the person was or who they were in communication with. It's been my experience in blunt force trauma that a lot of the evidence is on the remains. So what I mean by that is you're going to do what we call a deluxe on post. That means you're going to take fingernail scrapings. You're going to take, you're probably going to do a CSA kit. I would have requested it. And you're going to hope for transfer between the victim and the offender. You get a lot of transfer when somebody is beaten to death. There's contact between both. So some of the offenders' DNA or trace evidence could be on the victim. So a ton of the evidence is going to come from the remains of the victim, in my opinion.
For Mariah's Nana, there's still a question of the evidence and how it was collected.
Well, did the police do something wrong? Isn't somebody arrested? Did they not get proper, like Miranda rights? Did they get evidence? I'm not saying they did anything. I know that Detective Ryan, I talk to him weekly. I know that he eats, breathes this. You know what I mean? I know that he wants justice for her. I don't know if he's going to the state's attorney and they're turning him away. None of it makes sense. They should have had all the evidence that day of the trailer, the search warrant, her autopsy. I know they wait for phone records, DNA. I know that they have got all that stuff back. So I'm still here. We're going on 6 months. Her birthday is next month, August 31st.
Is it possible that they know who their person is and they had a hiccup? They didn't Mirandize the person, or they collected evidence without a search warrant or something like that. Is anything like that possible?
Well, but it's possible. Sure. Absolutely. I mean, it's possible that they had some problems with evidence collection. Sure. No question about it. I don't know that they made an arrest and didn't Mirandize, because an arrest would be pretty public. You would know about an arrest. But it very well could be. I mean, and I know Bloomington, Illinois doesn't have a bunch of murders, but they have good detectives down there that could run an investigation. But yeah, I mean, you can't rule that out. But I'm just puzzled by the lack of information. And this is going back, the last thing I read about it was in March.
I have asked the Bloomington Police Department point blank, are there any suspects? Is Michael Kletz a suspect? And I have been repeatedly told they can't release that information. And I understand. I mean, they have to protect the integrity of the investigation. But at the same time, those closest to Mariah are growing impatient.
Think about this every day. It has consumed me because I was calling the police every day, and then it went to a few times, and I still call Detective Ryan twice a week because I get the same thing. You know who did it. We know who did it. And I said to them, why isn't anybody arrested?
And if this is an isolated instance, like the police say that it was, why has it took 6 months for an arrest to be made when there was only 4 people in that home? One being Mariah dead, one a child, and 2 grown adults.
Police won't confirm who was in the trailer at the time Mariah died, but we do know there were only 4 people who lived there. Mariah, her 3-year-old sister, her father Michael, and his girlfriend Caitlin. Police won't release the 911 call, but Mariah's aunts believe it was Caitlin who made the call. According to Mariah's dad, he's still hoping for police updates.
I have tried. I have reached out to them, and they haven't really said much to me, I mean, I've called the coroner, they just ain't giving me no answers, and it's been rough with me, and especially dad losing his baby girl and what I've been going through, and and personally, I need justice for my baby, justice or something has to be served, you know what I mean? And that's where I'm at right now.
But it's the horror that Mariah's family endured that day back in February that keeps them up at night.
And I'm 50 years old, and I've never seen anything like this in my life.
Nobody should ever see what we saw that day in the basement of the funeral home.
It changed us forever.
That picture of her laying on the table just replays in my head every day I wake up.
You know why everybody else's, days move forward and, they continue on with everyday life. Our life has consisted of finding justice for Mariah since the day she's died, and it's consumed us. I mean, from the phone calls we make to, everything that we're trying to do to fight for her, our world has stopped as well.
We don't want her to become a cold case because we care about her and we need answers. She needs answers. Will we ever know truly, her last minutes of her life? We hope we can find out. We hope there will be answers. We hope there will be an arrest. But at the end of the day, she deserves justice, and her story deserves to be heard and told, and the truth deserves to be known.
That's the bottom line here. There's a 16-year-old girl who police say was murdered, and so far, her killer has yet to be brought to justice. If you have any information about the death of Mariah Kletz, please contact the Bloomington Police Department. And that is where today's episode of Scandal leaves us for now. If you like what you saw and you want to see more or connect with me on social media, you can find me on places like Instagram @Sierra Gillespie. Thanks for watching today's episode of Scandal. As always, I'm your host, Sierra Gillespie, and I'll see you next time.